Okay, so I don't usually do two Pixar reviews in a row, let alone uploaded the exact same week. That depends on when I upload this. But I feel like I just need to talk about this film before I lose my mind. So here we go. Fair warning, I'm about to go screaming and spitting because wow, there are some parts of this film that make me extremely pissed. So if you don't like reviews where people shout, then just go. I don't mind. Bye. So just a little heads up. So just turn your headphones down. Turn the volume down, please. I'm just giving you a little bit heads up there. So back when I was making my thoughts of videos, I don't suggest you ever go back to watching these ever. Like probably ever. They're not very good. Episode 65 was about A Bug's Life, the second feature film in Pixar's library. No one really called it Pixar's masterpiece or anything. No, some people do. But I thought it was fine. It was my least favorite Pixar film, but it was still watchable in my opinion. It wasn't like with Studio Ghibli or Disney or DreamWorks or Sony or Illumination, where they have one or a couple films that really make you tick. Not in a good way. But Pixar, Bugs Life was really, for me, their only below average film. Like, I thought it was okay. Not great, but still watchable, as I said. I also share their sentiment in my Pixar ranking and in my comparison video where I compared it to Ants and ultimately decided that Ants was the better film. Even though I haven't seen Ants in a good while, I still personally believe that it is still better than A Bug's Life. But aside from that, don't listen to this man, he's a complete f***ing moron. A Bug's Life is just so confusingly bad. In my DVD review of A Bug's Life, which also is one of my most viewed videos ever. Thanks, guys. I heavily badmouthed A Bug's Life, and it was pretty ruthless. I haven't gone back to watch it, not that I want to, because it's, pre-win or lose AMV video. But, I think I recall really dunking on this film. Like, I really, really shat on it. After watching Win or Lose twice in the same week, it reignited my love for Pixar. So for the month of April, so far I've been rewatching every one of Pixar's films. All 28 of them, including Win or Lose the third time. And as you can see, it's been going so far. Toy Story, topic of the video, Toy Story 2. I've been still doing my documentary month, so yeah. Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Best Pixar Movie Ever. Again, next, another documentary, Toy Story 3, Cars 2, and Brave. So that's all I've seen so far. But if we go all the way back to near the start, we have A Bug's Life, which is the second film I had to watch for this marathon. And I was dreading the rewatch for this more than any other film I've had to rewatch. Except for maybe Airplane 2, because that film is literally the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Despite this, however, I went into it expecting to just absolutely hate it. But it wasn't terrible, maybe? It was still bad, but more on the border of being so without sinking directly into the ocean. I still hate the story, most of the characters, and the hypocrisy of the themes, though. So enough dilly-dallying, even though I still want to. Why do I dislike this film so when there are other Pixar films out there that have even less fans than this one? Well, let's find out. As with the Disney decree of not using fair use properly, I can't show any clips from this movie. However, I will try my best to use screenshots. Since that's technically fair use, I'm not showing clips from the film, just screenshots. So Disney, is that okay with you, please? Yeah, thank you, okay. So, A Bug's Life follows Flick, this guy right here. An ant who invents stuff that is actually pretty useful in helping his colony pick food for Hopper, an evil grasshopper who oppresses the ants. However, because we can't not have our adorable, clumsy, screw-up main character, he accidentally tips over the stash that causes the grasshoppers, particularly Hopper, to get extremely pissed, leading to him doubling the amount of food needed. Flick gets an idea to get stronger bugs in order to fight against the grasshoppers. Princess Ada, who's the ugly looking aunt in the middle, and other higher ups see this as an opportunity to get rid of Flick. This would be funny if if the character they're getting rid of was unlikable, but because Flick is one of the only likable characters in the movie, this just makes the entire colony incredibly douchey looking. Flick actually succeeds in finding bugs bigger than the grasshoppers, so they aren't warrior bugs as Flick wanted, but a failing troop of circus bugs, a few of which you can see in the background. Not the ant on the right, that's a different character. After sorry, what the hell was that? After a series of wacky misunderstandings, Flick discovers that they can actually help, and so they all band together to defeat the grasshoppers, while the colony discovers that Flick was actually helpful the whole time. Oh, wait, I forgot to mention the shitty liar reveal plot that completely throws out easy character development and common sense for terrible drama. Yep, it's time to talk about the giant anteater in the room. This story is complete and utter bullshit. Like I said, it completely throws out complete common sense out the window in favor of making the film more, quote-unquote, dramatic. The liar reveal cliche is one of the worst cliches ever, because there are very few movies that actually do it well. The only movie I've seen that does it well is Over the Hedge, because it feels realistic as to how these characters would react in a real-life situation if somebody they trusted had been lying to them the entire time. And also, I rewatched a clip from the movie not too long ago, and apparently, the turtle character, whatever his name was, he was actually impressed that Bruce Willis, whatever his name was, RJ, that was his name. He was actually impressed that he actually came back and was able to convince the entire group of animals that yes, he's good because he came back at all. Like that's actually, interesting and smart. Even great movies like Klaus don't do it very well. But by far the worst perpetrator of this cliche is insert movie name here. Okay, so from now on, spoilers for this, oh my god, 26-year-old movie. What the shit? Okay, so Flick has an idea to defeat the grasshoppers. It involves building a giant fake bird, because Hopper is deathly afraid of birds. As the film goes on, the colony starts to warm up to Flick and the circus bugs, with Ada and Flick even starting a little romance. A couple in a kids' movie? What a shocking revelation, I've never seen that before. However, once the truth is revealed, everyone suddenly turns against Flick and the circus bugs, with Ada saying that Flick lied to the entire colony and that he should be ashamed. Bitch, what the hell are you talking about? You lied to Flick! That's... You let him enact his idea of finding bigger bugs as a way to get rid of him, and by the way, Flick never finds us out. Okay, so let me explain. So, earlier in the film, after the whole Hopper interaction near the start, the big, rich, the main aunts of the colony, the princess and the other members of the court, decide to banish Flick to the mines for a month as a way to get rid of him. But then he gets the idea to go out and get bigger bugs, and the princess and the other 4 members of the court use this as a way to get rid of him. And like I said, Flick's a likable enough character, so this seems incredibly annoying from them. However, the annoying part is that Flick never finds out that they were wanting to get rid of him. He's as bubbly as ever, which makes no sense. If this movie had a better script, Ada would also admit to her lies, instead of only scolding Flick, and Flick would make the colony feel bad before departing and the film goes on as normal. Then, when Dot has to cheer him up, she convinces him that even though the colony lied to him, he should still help them because that's the right thing to do. Have a real conversation, instead of doing the whole pretend it's a seed bullshit that they pull out of their ass later on in the film. If you want to go the pacifist run, then sure, have Ada admit her lies, but Flick still helps them after. I know the second option requires actively rewriting the finale almost completely, and I don't really have time for that. So if you guys are bothered, then rewrite it in the comments or something. Maybe I have time to rewrite the whole film, I don't know. The story sucks! Keeping the plot gets rid of the obvious character development for Ada in every other kids movie in existence. She would admit to her wrongdoings, admitting to the fact that she lied along with Flick. Then she would be the first to forgive Flick, which would show that this whole ordeal changed her ways of being dismissive of Flick. Yeah, I know it's character development 101. Everyone knows this. But it still would have made sense for the story. And I wouldn't have feel like a gigantic asshole from the writers. But oh no, we just gotta have some gripping drama. We have to have the stupid plotting where everybody hates Flick now. And despite him creating an incredibly good plan that you were all behind a few seconds ago, they still exile him from the colony because they lied to him. He lied to them. And he hurt their feelings. Huh? I'm sorry, but what the hell am I watching? Is this real? Am I losing my mind? Was this film written by monkeys on crack or something? Why are you throwing away such simple character development and common sense for the sake of shitty drama? This studio released Toy Story 3 years earlier, and they call this their second movie? This film, this plot is a complete f***ing disgrace. It's like if the most uncreative people in the world made an animated movie. But that would be an insult to the actual writers of the movie, because this was co-written by Joe Ranft, Andrew Stanton, and yikes, never mind. Andrew Stanton made the Finding movies and WALL-E. Joe Ranft co-wrote the original story of Toy Story with Andrew Stanton and got nominated for an Academy Award. He also voiced so many iconic side characters in Pixar's early films. In fact, he voices one of the only good characters in A Bug's Life. Heimlich, that big slug in the background. So why have two writers, great writers, and John Lasseter written such an awful script when their previous work was so good it got nominated for a goddamn Oscar? I just don't understand. The resolution at the end isn't even really that satisfying. Because Ada still never reveals that she and the entire colony wanted Flick to disappear when they sent him out. Thanks, Pixar, for not solving the one conflict that was meant to be solved. Sorry, I lost my cool there for a second. Before I send myself to a mental hospital, is there anything of worth in this movie? Anything good at all? Well, yes, there is. It's pretty damn funny. Definitely nowhere near as funny as the first two Toy Stories, but when it is funny, it's really damn funny. The characters are a mixed bag. The majority of characters in this film, aka the colony, are horribly unlikable, but I refer you to the previous 5 minutes of the video where I lost my shit talking about an animated kids film. You know, why do I even try in life? Flick is an okay character, I guess. The circus bugs are really funny, but they aren't really anything beyond that. I like how they don't save the day by using the bird, which keeps them in character. They're pretty cowardly, but they definitely, still help in the finale. Dosh, who is the who's the sister of the Princess Ada, is actually the only ant character of all the ant characters. She's my favorite. She's the only character I actually like throughout the majority of the film. She's adorable, funny, and is actually useful in the plot when she needs to be. She isn't just some useless kid character, for the most part. She also is one of the only ants who still believes in Flick after the big breakup scene. Jesus, this movie. However, by far the best character in the film is the villain of the picture, Hopper, voiced perfectly by real-life villain Kevin Spacey. He's really intimidating, actually scary, and really poses a large threat to the main characters. He's willing to kill a child just to prove a point about oppression. He also kills this group, this three group of grasshoppers who were suggesting to just stay and not go back to the ants, just to also prove a point about how ants can overpower grasshoppers when they're all together. One ant cannot really do anything, but they can inspire other ants to go against the grasshoppers. So yeah. His interaction with his brother are also hilarious as well. He can sometimes be funny. Like I said in my up review, you don't need to have a villain constantly crack jokes in order to be memorable. And I think you know what I'm talking about when I refer to people who think that. Of course, you can't just have a boring villain who doesn't do anything, but constantly cracking jokes isn't what makes him a villain memorable. Like I said, it works for some villains, but for others, being menacing is just all you need. Menacing and also completely psychopathic. like Frollo, or Jafar, or Scar, or Ursula. Speaking of oppression, of the whole thing I was talking about earlier, that's the main theme of the film. Oppression, and how to stand up to it. It's a mature subject for a kid's film, and they don't shy away from what happens when you try to stand up to it by yourself, and it doesn't work sometimes. Flick, near the end of the film, gets ruthlessly beaten to a pulp by one of Hopper's minions. It shows a darker nature of the film compared to Toy Story. Of course, the message is screwed up because the lie revealed, where Flick doesn't stand up to the colony about their lies. It would have been the perfect way to tie into the message to the protagonists of the film, because the protagonists are flawed. But of course, the writers of Toy Story find the whole idea too complex for them. Despite the hypocrisy, I think it's a good lesson to teach both kids and adults. And despite the terrible story, mostly unlikable characters, muddled message, mixed comedy, and bad pacing, there are some things that are improved in this film from Toy Story. I already mentioned the themes, but the tone changes are more fluid, with one exception, and I think you know which one I'm talking about. But the two big improvements are the animation and music. The animation is much better than Toy Story. The character animation isn't as rigid, the textures aren't as muddy, and the lighting isn't as sharp. There's still some weird things with the animation. Of course, I can't show them, but there are some things, some choice moments where the animation isn't, up to snuff. Again, it's 1998, they have an excuse, unlike Ice Age 1. But like I said, there are some things that are weird. The frame rate only changes with certain objects, which is more normal for stop motion. Like you've seen Chicken Run, the frame rate of some certain objects change, but it's weird for CGI. Also, the particular running animation of this scene is so wonky. Like seriously, look at him go! The music is also an improvement. It's the same composer, Randy Newman, but there's a larger variety with The Bug's Life than with the film I've already mentioned too many damn times. Toy Story. Story, I don't know. The varied music also continues with, Toy Story 2 and Monsters, Inc. I can still tell it's Randy Newman, however, who's probably my least favorite of the three big Pixar composers. Thomas Newman and Michael Giacchino are my kind of composers. They make the best scores for Pixar, whereas Randy over here just kind of makes great soundtrack, but no better. You can tell it's him by the use of instruments in some certain tracks. They sound pretty similar. Kind of like with Thomas Newman and Giacchino as well. Giacchino has a lot of brass instruments, like in The Incredibles and Ratatouille, Up, Cars 2, which he composes well for some reason. I mean, the soundtrack is one of the best parts of that film, but still, it's not exactly a good comparison. I wouldn't exactly put his Cars 2 soundtrack up to snuff with The Incredibles, Ratatouille, or Up, in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. But Thomas Newman is also a pretty good composer as well. He uses a lot of piano and violin. No, he doesn't use violin. Maybe he does, but I haven't really listened to many of his soundtracks. But he's a good composer. Finding Nemo and Wally have a great soundtrack. So does Finding Dory, which I've not rewatched yet, but I will at some point. Also, his songs are infamous for not being the best. I mean, You Got a Friend in Me is iconic, and so is We Belong Together from Toy Story 3. The Time of Your Life, which is the main song in this film, is okay, but it's pretty generic. I remember the first part, but that's really it. I don't really remember the rest of it because it's a pretty generic song. Also, before I cap off the review, I need to mention that this was the first of 3 consecutive Pixar movies to have bloopers during the end credits. Not of the actors messing up their lines, but of the characters messing up their lines, as if it was like a movie itself. It's pretty funny when it has no right to be. I would love to show you these bloopers, but again, Disney, they'll take it down. And I'm not going to risk having to re-record all this a second time. That's going to be pretty damn annoying if I had to do that. To conclude, what has this review taught us? That I'm a complete psychopathic nutcase and that A Bug's Life is much worse than I originally gave it credit for. It isn't horrible, but like I said at the start, it's on the border of being bad. The story sucks, the majority of the characters are horrible, the pacing is slow, the comedy is a mixed bag, and the message, though great on paper and sometimes in execution, is completely screwed up by an earlier scene in the film. Despite these issues, the circus bugs, Dot, and Hopper are good characters. The film is sometimes pretty funny. The animation holds up pretty well, for the most part, and the soundtrack is great. Overall, it's an okay film, but there's a lot to be desired. It isn't the worst film ever. The title is still pretty accurate. I still think the story is pretty bad, and the film is pretty bad in some cases. But there's a lot better Pixar films than this shit. And I can bet you, tenfold, that when you hear the word Pixar, this is never the first film you think of. If you say otherwise in the comments, go ahead. Otherwise, 5 out of 10. Would not recommend. Enjoy the masquerade of comments telling me I'm wrong or something. I don't know, man. I just want to go to bed. I'm tired. Which is ironic because the time I'm recording this is currently 4:15, so I shouldn't really be tired. But, you know, shouting can make you tired. What a shock. Okay, this is a little bit I'm recording at the end. Look, it's my hands. Ooh, you haven't seen them in a while. However, after finishing the recording, I went back to the original video and I noticed two mistakes I made regarding like either my lefts and rights and also mistaking him for a different animal. So let me just play you the two clips right now. But a failing troop of circus bugs, a few of which you can see in the background. Not the ant on the right, that's a different character. That is not an ant on the right. That is a ladybug. That is the ant on the left. Rich TRM. If you can actually, tell your rights and lefts and rights. And then there's this bit. Heimlich, that big slug in the background. That is not a slug. That is a caterpillar. You complete and utter moron. I'm a professional YouTuber. I can't even tell my lefts and rights or what certain bugs are called. I'm a professional YouTuber. I should not be a YouTuber. God damn.